Check. Check, check. Okay. Bump my microphone just a tad. Nadita, good evening? Hello? 7:06 a.m. Tomorrow, though. I can't keep it straight. Can't keep it straight, dude. Yeah, 7 o'clock is... What time do you normally wake up? Is that early? Early for a wake up for you? Alright, let me make sure I've got all my little doodads and things here. You got 1 minute. Ah, waking up early because of classes. I remember that. Oh. I'm waking up. That's about time. I wake up about 6:30. 6:30 every day. Get my day going. Partly by choice, but partly because I have to. This is a weird little camera. I couldn't figure out what to do with like this little box here. You guys see? Like I used to have chat here, but now it's kind of a Twitch news thing. Like chat is putting chat on the screen is now kind of like could be problematic, you know? So I just elected to take it off entirely. I'm doing well. These are my favorite days to stream. Like this is the perfect time of day for me. I love it. I was a little bit hectic this morning though. A little bit hectic. Getting going. Oh god, it started over again. The timer started over. Well, that's something I need to change. Hi. Captain Faraj, did you change your name? Hello. Ah, for squadrons, got it. Yeah. Yeah, so doing okay. Hope you guys had a good weekend. Having a good start to your week. Back to work, back to class. I don't know. We had yesterday off here in the US. Well, sort of. It's like a postman's holiday. President's Day. Just kind of a random holiday we have in February. But my wife was home and the kids were home from school, so we just kind of hung out. But yeah, I've been getting up like 6:30 or so. It's hard for me. I'm at that point in my life now where like it's harder for me to sleep in. Like I don't remember like sleep until 10 a.m. Like I remember doing that like back in the day. But now it's like it's hard. It's hard to sleep past. It's hard for me to sleep past like 8:30. So what I've been doing recently is getting up at like my wife gets up at like 6:15 and does yoga downstairs. And so I get up at like, yeah, with kids it's hard. We got like school, we got to get out the door we have to get out of the door by 8:15. So even on weekends it's hard for me to sleep past like 8:30 just because my clock, my body clock wants me to wake up at a certain time. So I set my alarm for 6:30. I usually snooze it once. I get up at like 6:40. My wife's doing yoga downstairs, so I like go down, I start coffee, I take a shower, and then I go for like a walk. I've been walking for like, I don't know, 25-minute walk, about a mile. And maybe 20 minutes or so. In the morning, I don't take my phone with me, I don't listen to music, I just kind of like enjoy the silence of the morning and kind of let my head get into a good space, you know? It's kind of like a meditative walk. I just kind of like let my mind wander. And I think about like, I just kind of let it go wherever it wants to go, you know? And then on my last stretch home, I try to kind of like, I probably look like a crazy person out there, but I kind of just like talk to myself about like, okay, like, you know, what are we thinking about today? Where are we at? You know, kind of a little morning check-in with ourselves. And then I've got some fresh air in me. It's good to like get home. I start making breakfast and do my morning activities, you know, for getting my family set. It really does. And I think like it's good to set aside that time like every day, even if it's just for a few minutes, you know? So this was something I was like, I think I'm just gonna, you know, because I'm trying to like shed some pounds. And so like the best way to do that for me is like to make sure I get like my steps in every day. And sometimes when you get going throughout the course of the day, you get like working or you start to, you know, do the tasks that you kind of have laid out for yourself every day. It's hard to make time to actually like go for a walk, even if it's just for like around the block, you know? So I'm like, all right, let me start my day with that. So I kind of just have been doing that for like the last month probably. And it's good because it gets me like a little head start on my step count for the day. I don't feel like obligated to sneak something in at the end of the day. I just kind of like do it, and I kind of, you know, it's nice. It's a nice way to start the morning. So, but yeah, weekend was fine. I Stayed up way too late playing Apex on Sunday night. Oh my god, that was bad. I was like in a bad spot too with that game. Like I was just like, I was playing ranked on Sunday night, and I just had like a bad run, and I was just like, I'm not turning the game off until I get at least back to the level I was at when I started. You know, and it took me like a really long time. Like I was just not in a good spot. I think I got myself into some bad habits on Sunday night playing, because I started off kind of doing like this project that I was working on, where I was like going to all of the points of interest on the map and writing down, like, I probably could have done it like online. I'm sure there's a map for it online somewhere, but I wanted to do it on my own, and writing down like the loot level of each drop point or point of interest. Excuse me, I'm drinking a sparkling probiotic drink. It's like the Booch. It's not. I thought it was Booch, but it's actually not, just sparkling probiotic drink. Kefir culture. And it's making me a little belchy. So yeah. Yeah, it was not. I was up till like 4 a.m. playing Apex on Sunday night. Not a good move on my part. And then so I was super tired yesterday. Yesterday? Yeah, yesterday, because I only got like 3 or 4 hours of sleep. But I was able to kind of chill yesterday and watched a couple movies and got caught up on some reading and took a little nap. And it was just because it was so cold here too. That's the other thing, is the United States is going through this like freezing, what do they call it, polar vortex thing. So it's just like this huge pocket of cold air that's covering almost the entire country, and it's slowly moving from west to east. And for the rest of the week, I think like most states in the country, I think I heard on the radio this morning, on the news this morning, that like most states are going to be in a winter weather advisory for the rest of the week, which is crazy. We're okay here now, but over the weekend, it was freezing freaking cold. It was like minus, like for us at least, it was minus. It was below freezing all day on Saturday and most of the day yesterday. I think it got up to like 10 yesterday, 10 Fahrenheit. But it was below zero all day on Saturday and like half of the day on Friday evening. Yeah. Worst California ever sees is like mid-40s. Yeah, and like doesn't really snow too much. Maybe like in Northern California you get the occasional flurry. I mean, Tahoe snows, right? In the mountains it snows. But as far as like the population centers of California, like it's very rare to get anything below 50 probably. I mean, unless it's San Francisco in the summertime, right? But even then, like, doesn't really snow. But Texas is like the whole state is under a winter weather warning for the first time ever, I think I heard. It's colder. So on NPR today, they said it's colder in Texas than it is in Anchorage, Alaska today. Think about that. It's crazy. And it was like negative 32 somewhere up in Minnesota. Just nuts. Where I live, it doesn't snow, but it snows 2 hours drive south. Okay. It's weird, like you're on the bottom part, so it's like driving south is where it gets colder for you guys. For us, it's like we go north and it gets colder. It's kind of funny. It's a funny thing. I like talking to you, Nadita, because it's like we're literally on opposite ends of the globe. Whoop, just flipped, completely flipped. Yeah, so it was brutal here. We just kind of had to hunker down for like 4 days. So I got this like fitness tracker thing for my birthday, and it's got like this app that's got like challenges and things you can kind of you get badges. It's like a gamifying your exercise routines. Terrible. What's up, man? What's up, you Grandmaster belt creator guy? Guys, if you didn't see Terrible's Twitter, he created this like championship WWE style belt for this chess competition that's going on through Twitch, and it looks like it's like, what is it? Would you use like is it made out of wood? It's pretty awesome. Posted it on his Twitter yesterday. It looks super sweet. So the app has like these little badges you can earn by doing certain things, like doing a certain amount of steps or running, a certain amount of kilometers in a given month or week or year or whatever, And so I've been kind of trying to like join one of these challenges and have like one challenge going every week or two. So I can kind of keep myself honest, and it gives me kind of like a goal. Like gamifying exercise really works for me. I can't just like, I'm gonna wake up and lift, or whatever, because it's just like, no, I need to have a reason to do it, because I'm already married. Who am I trying to impress? 100 burpees a day. Yeah, that was a good idea. Exactly, but it's gamifying it, right? I was like, sure, I'll do it. Never again. That sucked, but I was pretty proud of myself for completing that. 100 burpees a day for 30 days on average. Some days I did 200 and some days I did 0. It was 3,000, right? 3,000 in December. So this one that I had to do, this challenge I had to do over the weekend it was a weekend challenge, and it was like, do a 3-mile walk, this weekend. And I was like, easy, no problem. That'll take me like an hour, right? Go for a walk on the bike path, go see some nature, come back, no problem. So I started, and but the badge was only available from Friday through Sunday. And so I was looking at the weather, and I was like, oh crap, it's going to be like, the warmest it was going to be was on Friday morning, and it was 19 degrees. Because it was just going to get colder on Friday, and Saturday was going to be negative, and Sunday it wasn't going to get warmer until like the evening. So I was like, all right, well, I'll do this on Friday. I will go out and do my walk and it was so cold. It was so cold. Like, I wore my snow pants like that I used to wear going like snowboarding, insulated pants, like double socks, and my hair, it's kind of long, so it like sticks out from my hat when I put my hat on. Was frozen. My eyelashes were frozen. Yeah, it was really cold, but we got it done. So it was fun. I was like kind of dreading it. It was one of those things I was dreading it at first, and then kind of like the burpees. And then I finally got it done, and it felt really good to say, like, I went out in 19-degree weather and walked for 3 miles because, and I got a badge. And I got 2 badges because there was one that was like, do an activity when it's below freezing outside. So that was fun. But yeah, that was basically our weekend. It was just kind of hanging out. Watched, had like a 90s day on Saturday, where we watched 10 Things I Hate About You, and in the evening we watched the movie Go. So if you haven't seen either of those movies, 10 Things I Hate About You is a like teen rom-com from like late 90s, I want to say. Probably like 97. No, maybe 99. Okay, yeah, it's 99. And then the movie Go was from, I know, dude, it's such a good movie. Like, so the first time I ever saw it was when I was dating this girl in college, and she was like, I love this movie, I love it, I want to watch it. And I was like, all right. And like, I was a film major in college, so I was like, rom-com, so dumb. Rom-coms are stupid. And then I like watched it begrudgingly, and I was like, it's okay, Where is it? Director. Go, 1999. So both of them were 99. Good year. And it's so good. It's just so sweet, and it's such like a good, like, I mean, it's a remake of Taming of the Shrew, the Shakespeare piece, Billy Shakes. And it's just, I don't know, it's got a lot of heart to it, and it's good to see like Heath Ledger kind of, it was his kind of breakout role. Julia Stiles is really good in it too, I don't know, it's a good movie. That was part of our rom-com movie club that we're doing this month. And so the other movie, Go, is like this night in the life of LA 20-somethings from the 90s. And about like, you know, like a drug deal kind of goes bad, and I don't know, it's kind of like the Pulp Fiction-y type where it like is the same story told 3 times from 3 different points of view. And that one's pretty good too. Like that one feels way more 90s. I mean, 10 Things I Hate About You definitely has like the soundtrack, and it's like, you know, the jokes are kind of a little bit like, you ever watch Friends now too? Like Friends, the jokes in Friends are a little bit like, ooh. You know, like a little bit homophobic, maybe a little bit racist, maybe, like not looking back on it now, like 20 years later. But Go is like, definitely feels like it's like kind of built on like rave culture too, a little bit. And so there's, you know, the soundtrack is super 90s, and I don't know, it was fun. I want to go back. Like the 90s were just kind of, that's when I was in my teens, and so I remember fondly those when those movies came out. But it was fun. Have a little movie marathon for the 90s. Just kind of not even planned, so it was good. But today, so this week is it's kind of special. We humanity, not me. Well, I guess I'm part of humanity. Most days. We have a little buddy who's going to be arriving at Mars planet, the actual planet, on Thursday. So I was planning to do like a co-stream of that on Thursday, and we will actually do that. So we're gonna kind of follow along with NASA on Thursday, and watch us arrive at Mars and hopefully land on Mars. So we've got a little guy named Perseverance, and he or she is traveling through hurtling through space very close to Mars right now. We're less than about 48 hours away from when they're gonna have the big moment, which is pretty awesome. I don't remember if we watched the launch of that rocket on stream or not. I saw it, but I might have just watched it with my kids. I can't remember. But so today I kind of wanted to just like, I've been meaning to kind of go through and do a little bit of learning about like what we're doing there, what's going on there, other than the obvious, like, you know, the elites are living with Martians on Mars, and this is probably just a way to kind of send them their mail or something like that, right? It's all a big conspiracy. So I just kind of want to go through and kind of do a little bit of reading and maybe talk about what's going on, what the lander is going to do, what the rover is going to do, and just kind of find some fun facts, do a little bit of digging. I don't have a degree or any huge amount of experience in this sort of thing, but it's super interesting to me, so I kind of wanted to just go through that today with y'all. Boop. Why is my monitor now showing up on the screen? I don't like that. I don't want you guys to see what's on my monitor. What have I done? That's all right. So we are going to basically kind of just set up the broadcast for Thursday today, and set up our broadcast here, and then just kind of chat. I'm going to read some stuff about what Perseverance is, and what they're going to be, what NASA's doing, what NASA's going to be doing on Mars. Maybe we'll watch a few videos, you know. 2 days and 2 hours, so about 50 hours we'll be landing. So that's what we're gonna do. So we're gonna get into that. Let me see if I can get my screen share going here. Boop. Let's see if we want to do we want to do a window capture today? Streamlabs. Okay. Yay, it's gonna work. Doesn't always work. Ye old Streamlabs. Let's just go ahead and crop this all out of there. There we go. Hit the screen. That ain't bad. That ain't half bad. Maybe I can even move my camera down a little bit. Let's go in the camera bucket. Lock in too much of the screen here. Box, go down here. You can stay over there, that's fine. Cool. All right, so let's we're just gonna kind of go through the website. We're gonna just browse the web today and talk about some science, talk about Perseverance, and I'm gonna look at some of this toolkit stuff too and see if we can have some fun stuff to maybe do and on Thursday when they land. All right, so there's a picture of your rover, your standard Perseverance rover. He's drilling for some. I'm gonna call it a he. I think it identifies as a he on Twitter, at least. All right, let's watch this quick video about the overview. Pretzel Rocks. I wish you had a better.
Mars is the
I'm gonna go full screen on this.
Closest place that we can.
Let's see here.
Place that we can
Turkey.
reach with robotic exploration that we think had a really good chance of having ancient life.
The Perseverance rover will land at a location called Jezreel Crater.
I'm gonna start this over.
Jezreel Crater is a
Mars is the closest place that we can reach with robotic exploration that we think had a really good chance of having ancient life.
The Perseverance rover will land at a location called Jezreel Crater. Jezreel Crater is a very interesting place. It's a crater that once held a lake.
There are a lot of craters on the surface of Mars that could have once hosted ancient lakes, but not every crater that we think had a lake actually preserves evidence that that lake was there.
It had an inflow channel and it had an outflow channel. That means it was filled. The crater was filled with water.
In Jezreel, we have probably one of the most beautifully preserved delta deposits on Mars in that crater.
This is a wonderful place to live for microorganisms, and it is also a wonderful place for those microorganisms to be preserved so that we can find them now so many billions of years later.
There is no other place on Mars that has the unique combination of a lake setting, a beautifully preserved delta, and the diverse mineralogy that we have in Jezreel Crater. So it's truly a special landing site.
The major goal of the Perseverance mission is to investigate astrobiology on Mars, and in particular, to address the question of whether life ever existed on Mars. The Perseverance rover starts with a design that's very similar to Curiosity, but we've added to it a whole new set of science instruments. And these science instruments were purposefully selected to help us in the search for biosignatures.
We're going to be taking microphones with us.
Cool.
For the first time, we're going to have that human sense on another planet.
Perseverance carries with her a grand experiment in spacefaring technology, a helicopter, the name of which is now Ingenuity.
One of the major upgrades that Perseverance has from Curiosity is that it's able to self-drive for a distance of up to 200 meters per day. As the rover is driving, it's literally building the map of the road it's driving on Mars.
Scientists for years have told us that to really unlock the secrets of Mars, we have to bring samples from Mars back to Earth.
So what Mars 2020 is going to do
Let's
is
go.
to drill samples, put them in small tubes,
Shoot that shit into
seal
space.
it in its own individual tube. We set them on the surface to provide a target for the second 2 missions, which hopefully will get in development in the next several years and could potentially get the samples back to Earth by 2031.
Wow.
Perseverance is a very, very profound first step in both our understanding of our place in the universe and a stepping stone towards human exploration on Mars.
Pretty cool. Yeah, so brain doesn't work until at least noon. Well, almost there. What kind of music do they listen to? Exactly. Like, I wonder, maybe Perseverance should bring music with it, you know? Like a good kind of like, oh, hey guys, what are you listening to? I brought some of this stuff. I brought some of this stuff with me. So, Jezreel Crater, it'll be landing on Jezreel Crater, which used to be a big lake. And the reason for that is some trap beats. Yeah, what's hot right now? Ariana Grande is always our go-to when we don't know what music is playing in the audio rounds and trivia. We always just, if it's a woman's voice, we always guess Ariana Grande, and half the time it's right. So Jezreel Crater used to be a lake, and that being the case, there is a chance, at least, that there was some microbial life at the bottom of this lake that could still be in the ground there. So Perseverance is going to be taking samples from that area, and maybe they'll be able to find some microbial or signs of microbial life on Mars, which is pretty cool. So it looks like it'll be drilling samples and then just kind of leaving them on the ground, and then hopefully someday in the next 10 years, they were saying, they will be able to retrieve those and get them back to Earth, which would be pretty crazy. It sounds like not. I mean, yes, difficult, but not in like the NASA sense. I'm sure they can figure it out. It's also bringing Ingenuity, which is a helicopter. First time there will be a helicopter on Mars, and also microphones for the first time, which is kind of surprising that they didn't like record any. They haven't recorded anything, but that's going to be cool to kind of see. I wonder what quality it will be, though. The exciting thing, I think, in getting all of these vehicles to Mars, like this month and in this year, like now, is just the gigantic leaps in technologies that have happened since the last time. I don't know what the last rover was. Mars rover missions. Let's see if it's got a timeline here. Curiosity, 2011. So it's been 10 years since we landed a rover on Mars. Just to kind of like, we've got 4K cameras now that we didn't have 10 years ago, or we do, but like we did probably, but they were like probably bigger, and now we've got I would assume that the pictures we're going to get back from Perseverance are going to be pretty amazing. And we're going to get audio too, which is cool. So like, what does it sound like? Is it, can you hear the wind, or what does it sound like when there's a dust storm, or whatever? I don't know. It's going to be interesting. And just a little thing like that, they're probably the two microphones that are probably this big and super light, because we're able to kind of get things down to that size now, where it's more kind of conducive to weight limits, to keeping the weight down, to get stuff, and probably a little more durable as well, for landing. So pretty cool. 200 meters a day it can drive. The Mars 2020 Perseverance rover will search for signs of ancient microbial life, which will advance NASA's quest to explore the past habitability of Mars. The rover has a drill to collect core samples of Martian rock and soil, then store them in sealed tubes for pickup by a future mission that would ferry them back to Earth for detailed analysis. Perseverance will also test technologies to help pave the way for future human exploration of Mars. Okay, so it's a bunch of kind of like test tech too. Yeah, me too. It looked like a kind of a drone. But yeah, with the lower gravity and the, you know, the less atmosphere, like there's less friction there to kind of, you know, push against, right? I'm assuming that's one of those technologies where like, is this going to work? You know, maybe it won't work. Who knows? Searching for ancient life, gathering rocks and soil. There are several ways that the mission helps pave the way for future human expeditions to Mars and demonstrates technologies that may be used in these endeavors. These include testing a method for producing oxygen from the Martian atmosphere, identifying other resources such as subsurface water, improving landing techniques, and characterizing weather, dust, and other potential environmental conditions that could affect future astronauts living and working on Mars. So I feel like this is the first one that is less of kind of just like, let's just land there and see what's going on. Let's just take some pictures and just kind of drive around, and maybe we'll, you know, look at this rock, look at that rock, and kind of do. But this is actually like, I feel like the purpose of this one is a little more like laying the groundwork for the next one. You know, obviously they all kind of like tie together, but I feel like this is the first one, at least that I've followed, where they're kind of like, this is just like the first step in the next one, and the next one, and the next one, you know, which is kind of cool to see. So we launched on July 30th at 4:50 a.m. Definitely didn't watch that live. 4:50 a.m. Pacific, so 7:50 a.m. Eastern. Didn't watch that one live. Definitely watch that one on a replay. It'll be landing on February 18th, which is 2 days from now. The mission duration will be at least 1 Mars year, which is about 687 Earth days. So about a little less than 2 Earth years. Current phase, cruise. What does that mean? The cruise phase begins after the spaceship separates from the rocket soon after launch. The spaceship departs Earth at a speed of about 24,600 miles per hour. The trip to Mars will take about 7 months and about 300 million miles. During that journey, engineers have several opportunities to adjust the spacecraft's flight path to make sure its speed and direction are best for arrival at Jezreel Crater. I spelled that wrong. Jezreel. The first tweak to the spacecraft's flight path happens about 15 days after launch. Okay. Track the flight. What? What is this thing? Is this broken? NASA, your website's broken. What is this? Boop, 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 boop. Yeah. I don't know what that's doing. View the full experience. Engineers on Earth keeps close tabs during the mission during the cruise. Major activities include checking spacecraft health and maintenance, monitoring and calibrating the spacecraft, its onboard subsystem instruments. This is kind of all... We're kind of towards the end of all of this stuff. Here's where we are. Here's the route. Let's see. So we are 2.6 days before. We're like TCM 5. Let's see. What does that mean? Have that. What is a TCM? Oh, it's right there. Trajectory correction maneuvers. So we did our last one. 2 points today. Actually, they're doing their last one. Their last trajectory correction maneuver. I wonder if it's been updated. Let's see. Not yet. They haven't updated Twitter, at least, if they're doing that. And then tomorrow there would be a backup maneuver if we need to, and then 9 hours before landing on February 18th, which is the day of, which is like 2 or 3 in the morning my time. Contingency maneuver if needed. Final opportunity to adjust where spacecraft will enter the Mars atmosphere. So they have like about 9 hours before it lands. They have the last chance to make a change. Studying Mars's habitability, seeking signs of past microbial life, collecting and caching samples, and preparing for human missions. The Perseverance rover has 4 science objectives that support the Mars exploration program's science goals. Looking for habitability. Identify past environments capable of supporting microbial life. Seeking biosignatures. Seek signs of possible past microbial life in those habitable environments, particularly in special rocks known to preserve signs of life over time. Caching samples. Collect core rock and soil samples and store them on the Martian surface. Preparing for humans. Test oxygen production from the Martian atmosphere. All address key astrobiology questions related to the potential of Mars as a place for life. The first 3 consider the possibility of past microbial life. Even if Perseverance does not discover any signs of past life, it paves the way for human life on Mars someday. Which, you know, as time goes on, this is just a ambient station on pretzel rocks. If you scroll up a little bit in chat, Surveillance Drone by Abstraction. It posts the name of the song that's currently playing every time it switches songs. I just had it pause for that video. So yeah, I'm kind of in this like torn headspace right now as far as there's the kind of optimistic, hopeful. Let me see if I can copy and paste it. There's kind of the more wistful, kind of hopeful, optimistic, childlike wonder part of my brain is like, cool, putting people on Mars, like going to visit Mars and making it habitable for humans is a cool idea. And then kind of the more time I spend kind of like listening to other points of view and kind of like seeing like who's really into, I'm looking at you, Mr. Musk, who's really into like colonizing, which is also a problem word with me, colonizing Mars. I'm kind of like, I don't know. I'm kind of more towards like, let's get out there and just kind of like learn about it, but there's no need for us to really like go there. I don't know. I would be excited if they did, but I'm kind of like, it's not my most it's not number one on my priority list as far as like what I want to see NASA doing. The reasons for sending humans to Mars, I just don't see kind of the benefit of it other than just to say that we did it, I don't know. I like I do think that like exploring our own solar system is interesting to me in further detail, specifically like Europa and Titan and Mars and Venus are all very interesting to me. And the fact whether or not they currently have like microbial life or or more than that is probably the most interesting thing to me, other than like SETI shit. That's actually interesting to me. That's the more sci-fi stuff is interesting to me as far as like sending probes deeper into space, getting better and more technologically advanced telescopes out into space, into low orbit, to get better views of our immediate area in the galaxy, and kind of like our galaxy's place in the universe as well. That stuff is kind of the more exploratory stuff is more interesting to me than like colonizing a planet. I would actually say that, like, as far as like human exploration in space, I think like going to the moon would be cool, because I do think that like going to the moon would like establishing a base on the moon, that's like a science base on the moon, I think would be preferable to me as far as like where we need to put people. Simply because like that is, we'd be able to do more with you know, deep space telescopes and radio receiving and sending like radio transmissions and that sort of thing from, not from like aliens, but like from you know, other galaxies and other solar systems. And it kind of like, I think that is that should be the first step in proving whether or not we can like survive in space, you know. I would be interested in, if we're talking about like the Martian stuff, right? Like having a base on Mars and people with boots on the ground on Mars. I would almost rather, and I'm sure that they would do this first anyway, like send people to Mars and back, you know, like do like a round trip without landing them, just like to see if we can, what effect does that being in space that long have on the body, and our physiology, as far as like radiation and zero G and the mental aspect. All of that stuff is pretty interesting to me, and I think kind of like we can still learn a ton about planets and moons and things like that in our solar system by sending people to those places and bringing them back and just studying it from orbit, or from a little bit closer, or you can send probes to and from a ship in a couple of days rather than like having it take years and getting all that data much quicker, and then coming back with it. You know, it'd be easier. Like with this thing, like it's gonna drop these, just for argument's sake, it's gonna take these samples from the surface of Mars and just kind of leave them in vials along the surface, right? So if we had, say, Perseverance is doing that, and then we had a manned mission go there, and they could send a drone down or something like that to just go like pick that stuff up and then bring it back to the ship, and then it's back. We don't have to wait 10 years for that, right? It takes a few months to get people to Mars. They would spend a few months there learning, retrieving samples that rovers have left there for the last couple of years, putting all that back on the ship and bringing it back with them. And we can do all that in you know, people are there for say a year, right? They're 3 months out there, or no, it's be more than that, right? It'd be 6 months out there, 6 months there, and 6 months back. Do like an 18-month mission or something like that. I don't know. But even just like sending people around the moon and coming back. I know all this stuff is expensive, and they're like kind of nice to have. So you have to push the envelope too, because like if we learned anything from like post space race stuff with the like during the shuttle period, right, is that people get bored of just doing the same shit. People, like the public, gets bored doing the same shit all the time, right? Nobody freaking cared about the shuttle unless it was like exploding. Right? After a while, like nobody really cared. It was boring. It was like watching a school bus. It was an amazing, like reusable piece of technology. But people were not into it, you know? People were not excited by it. And that kind of led there to be like, I think like less support for it. Like, less support for it over time. So I think you need to kind of do stuff that's dangerous and push the envelope. Yeah, they learned a lot of stuff, and we built the space station, which is pretty cool. But again, like it's always there, and so there's nothing. Even though we are learning constantly, right? There's always scientists on the space station. we're learning things from these satellites. We're able to kind of like get these telescopes out there and maintain them so that they can stay out there longer if they have problems and all this stuff. That's good stuff. Those are all nice to haves, but it's not making people, it's not rallying people to the cause of science, or it's not rallying people to have conversations about like our place in the universe. And that's not interesting to a lot of people, but like I think that's one of those things that can really be kind of like a national and global thing that people can get behind if there is kind of like humans have done this, you know. And getting this shuttle launched was an achievement for humanity, but after a while it was just like a bus, right? It's a shuttle. Like I took a shuttle around my college campus to get from one class to the other, and it was not super sexy. You know, it like a shuttle, it's like that's the word this is like a big chunky bus thing that takes you from point A to point B and back again and over and over and over, and it's reliable. And but even though the shuttle wasn't reliable, it's supposed to be reliable and boring. You never used the Hurricane? Man, I use that thing all the time, especially on those days where it was like swamp ass, you know, like 90% humidity and 85 degrees. Ugh, brutal. Just like, oh, you skated everywhere, man. Yeah, I did not. I was lazy. I feel like my work study job was all the way across campus, and so from my dorm, so I would take that to and from to get in between classes. I don't think I even had enough time sometimes to kind of like work and then get to class or go back to my dorm. I don't know. I use it a lot. Hurricane. It's a cute name. So yeah, I think that like number one for me right now, as far as like if I'm balancing like being realistic about what we can do and how much it's going to cost. Back to science. Shuttles are science, man. There's science involved. It's a technology. I do think that like more turnaround time in getting these huge kind of like blockbuster news, like headline grabbing breakthroughs in space exploration is going to get more people involved. And that kind of it all comes down to the money, right? Like how much funding can they get from Congress? And if people are stoked about it, then like people are going to be like, yeah, like it's important to me that we like fund Mars research or like Venusian research, which they're talking about like there may be microbial life in the atmosphere of Venus potentially, which is cool. But like it'd be nice to have like maybe and be able to kind of do all these things at once, right? So we're not just having like, all right, we're all focused on getting to Mars. Like if we can, that's one of the things that I do give Elon Musk credit for, is that he's making like getting to space much easier, getting to low Earth orbit much easier and cheaper, and safer and all that stuff. And so SpaceX and all these private companies that are launching constantly are really kind of like, they are moving the needle as far as like what we're able to do, and the cost of the mission costs for NASA are going down, which means that they can kind of like do more kind of like things that are pushing the envelope. But it would be nice to have like, we've got a base on the moon, we've got stuff coming back from Venus and Mars constantly, because we're constantly like sending probes or rovers there, or manned missions back and forth or whatever, you know. I don't know, and kind of work within our little neighborhood first, because it's so interesting. There's so much we don't know, you know. We haven't even learned about everything there is to learn about the planet that we're currently on. And so like we're still learning things about like living on Earth. We're still screwing up this planet. You know, like I don't want us to be doing that like to another planet, really, you know. As far as like colonizing Mars and living there permanently, I just think that even though that's exciting to think about, I just don't really see the. I feel like after a while, even that would get old for people. I'm like, oh yeah, that guy's on Mars, you know. Mark Watney, he's still there. Okay. So I don't know, maybe someday, but it's not like number one for me. It's not even in the top 5, I don't think, of things I would want to see NASA do. Yeah, you know, like we were talking about that in the Discord, I think, of like the amount of Starlink satellites in orbit right now. And there's just that scene, like I read that article, and there's that scene in Wall-E where like the ship leaves Earth, like when Eve gets the little plant thing and they get in her little rocket and they blast off, and it goes through like that cloud of space junk, and it's like knocking all the, like, it's like, whoa. I know. It does feel like Wall-E is definitely, like, my kids watch that movie all the time, and so I get to kind of relive that movie over and over again. I'm just like, I hope my kids are getting like the actual problems that this movie is pointing out. That like, yeah, if you look outside right now, there aren't like mountains of garbage, but not, at least not directly where we live, right? But it does kind of feel like Amazon is by and large, right? And you know, Bezos is, there was speculation of like when Bezos stepped down as the CEO of Amazon that it was like to pursue his little pet project of I don't know what his, like, Sky Blue or whatever it's called, his little like space company that he's trying to get going. There could be giant piles of garbage like right outside your home. So yeah, I don't know. Blue Origin, yeah, that's what it is. So yeah, that's kind of stuff is scary, and so I do wish that they would. I do want to kind of like be looking farther out as much as possible, and also kind of like learning about our local area as well a little bit more. I do think like this stuff is like Perseverance has got me excited because it's like maybe we'll find that we'll actually know for sure that like Mars once had life. FTL, man. FTL, can it be done? Or at least like close FTL, right? That kind of stuff is exciting too. I am, that kind of stuff does get me excited as far as like thinking about, you know, I don't know who the leader is in that right now. Like who is leading the charge to like get us to Mars like faster than it takes right now, you know? And most things, you know, I read this book a while ago called The Case for Mars, and it's an older book now. It's probably like 10 or 15 years old. It's a quick read. I don't think I have it. You get that. I'm gonna order it right now from Amazon. I'm gonna actually write that down and order it later. Because basically what he talks about is that like we could have gone, like instead of the shuttle program, we could have gone to Mars like easily. And like he lays out all these reasons why it could have been like cheaper, and it would have like, or even if it wasn't cheaper, it would have been more it would have been doable just from the aspect of like having public support, and how the shuttle program was actually a huge setback for that because it was like, you know, inflated budget, and it was unsuccessful, and people, it just kind of was boring and kind of all that stuff. Wasn't it all just fighting communism? I mean, that's what the space race was in general, but like the 80s were, you know, still we could have gone. Why didn't we go back to the moon? There's all these questions about why it didn't happen. But it could have happened. You know, we were still spending a bunch of money on the space race. I think it was a political thing. Not going to Mars, it would have taken longer, and like it was, at least in theory, I think on paper, like more of a gamble as far as like what if people die on the way there, and you know, we need to be able to bring people back safely. That's the big thing. We want to see the astronauts giving the thumbs up when they land, when they come back home safely, which happens sometimes. So yeah. But basically, he was kind of talking about. He talks a little bit about that, about like getting, like propulsion, and doing like low Earth orbit construction of, what was that movie? Ad Astra, right? Ad Astra, at the very beginning of that movie, the Brad Pitt movie, which was pretty decent. Like, it was okay. It was weird. It was a weird one. Check it out if you haven't seen it. He's working on he's like a technician on like a space elevator, and so he's talking about that, of getting, it was fine, yeah, getting materials up and down from space, because like the heaviest part of a rocket launch is like the fuel for the thrusters. And so if we can launch from low Earth orbit, where you don't need the actual fuel to break Earth's, like, as much of Earth's gravitational pull, it's easier to kind of get stuff going, and you can kind of like, if you can fuel up when you're already in space, you haven't wasted all that fuel getting off of the ground. Yeah, that's part of the reason for the lunar base. If you can do that, you can bring the fuel up in little chunks, or you don't need as much in general, and yeah, it's, I don't know, all that stuff is reasoning to kind of like, let's build out our Earth. Let's get Earth under control. Let's maybe like go to the moon and set stuff up there and get ready and use that as kind of our base of operations for doing stuff like locally. There's probably like less, I don't know, this is complete speculation on you don't need anything. All you need is, we've got muscles. Push the shuttle out to the sun or whatever, yeah, you don't. Yeah, you don't stop. You can start, yeah, you just kind of, all you do is accelerating more, right? You only need a tiny little bit. You can like just kind of, and all you need is a tiny little push, and you keep accelerating, right? There's nothing to stop you out there until you hit a celestial body. It's cool to think about that stuff, though. Like, that stuff kind of is interesting to me. Artemis is a project that I think is, they talked about it at TwitchCon last year. Aliens, man. Vapes. NASA's committed to landing astronauts, including the first woman and the next man, on the moon by 2024. Lunar exploration. That's Artemis. Twin sister of Apollo. Also Hades, man. Yeah. Artemis! This was a cool... I wonder if I can find that that talk they did. So there's a streamer that I follow. Her name is Skylius. And she did a very good interview at TwitchCon last year. See, is this it? I can't find it. I'll post a link in Discord if I can't find it. But yeah, Artemis is our next like moon mission. Let's see. How are we going? Yes, Orion. Or as a friend of mine in high school once called it, Orion. And I'll never pronounce it the right way again. So that's another one we should talk about sometime. But yeah, so I guess that is coming soon, right? Is going back to the moon, building a base there, and then it was nice. It would be nice to see kind of like how all these things are tied together, though. It's probably like they knew how to do it, And again, there's like I think there is kind of like this playing it safe mentality sometimes. that they know they know the risks. Which again is one of the things I like about what SpaceX is doing, is because they're just like, well, we blew up another one. Let's go back to the drawing board. You know, and they actually like put people on those rockets. Got them to the space station. Boris, what's up? How's it going, man? We're just talking about our top. I'm gonna take a little break here, a quick bathroom break, and I want you guys to think about like what your Yaba asked me like what my number one is as far as like what is most interesting to me, what gets me fired up about like space exploration, and where would you put in that list? Where would you rank like having humans living on Mars, even just like temporarily, like scientists, astronauts? Think about that, and I'll be back in 1 minute. All right. So what is it? What is it for y'all? You want to see us like go to Mars and land there and like set up a tent, you know? Hang out for a bit? Chilly. Question was, like, what is your number one? What's the number one thing you would like to see us do in space? So, like, the question came up because we were talking about Perseverance is basically like is the first step in kind of like seeing how we can make Mars habitable for humans. And I was saying that like colonizing Mars is not super high on my list of things that I would like to see us do first, as far as like space exploration and what I would like to see humans do in space specifically. So I guess that's a very long and convoluted question, but like I don't know, what gets you fired up about like missions that you would like to see NASA do, like that are realistic, not like going to another galaxy or something like that, blowing up the Death Star. Let's say in the next 20 years, where would you like to see humans off of the planet Earth, and what would they be doing? So for me, it was like science base on the moon, or like exploration of the solar system, specifically Venus and Mars, but like just manned missions there and back, not going down to the surface and like living there, or just kind of like space travel, kind of more based in space travel. How much can the human body endure as far as that goes? I'd like to see us on the moon. Yeah, me too. And we're going allegedly in the next 3 years. Allegedly, that's Artemis's goal, I guess. Is to get the first woman on the surface of the moon, and to just kind of send us back there by 2024. Yes. So Boris, that's what I was kind of mentioning as well, as being very high on my list, is setting up, especially on the dark side of the moon. Like setting up a viewing station in space. You can see through walls in space. Setting up like a telescope / listening station, especially on the dark side of the moon where there's not as much interference from the Earth. I know it's like freezing freaking cold, but you know. Yeah, that would be cool. That would be definitely a thing that so where are we going to be in 20 years in space, Pasta? If you can see the future, tell us, man. Tell us what's happening. Oh my gosh, my nose. I don't know why we haven't been back in 40 years. I think it's like partially because like at the time it was all about like the race, and the race was over, and it's like, why aren't we still racing? You know, it's the goddamn boomers. Yep, that was not the boomers. That was the greatest generation that got us to the moon. The boomers did the shuttle, which was like, you know. The boomers did the shuttle. They had nothing to do with the moon other than watching TV. But I don't know. Like, I think that it just was not. They're like, they went back a bunch of times, and then they were kind of just like, all right, well, like the rockets kind of became. They were, you know, they kind of aged out, right? And they wanted to do the low Earth orbit thing, and I think a lot of it was just like defense. It was like, yeah. No, I totally agree with that, Boris. And I was talking about a book called The Case for Mars, which, if you haven't read it, it's pretty good. Money was an issue, but it was also I think a defense thing in the 70s and 80s. With it continued to be this Russia thing, right? And getting like the Star Wars system in orbit, and you know, there was much more of kind of like the shuttle was much more, at least to me, this is my kind of take on it, was a much more of a like military friendly vehicle, you know? It was less about like exploring and science and more about like, can we maintain our satellites, and can we, you know, do these things because of the immediate danger of the Cold War. In the 80s, you know, and there was less of this kind of like, we could have done it. We could have gone to Mars. We could have like gone to the moon again many times. We could have done all of these things, but that was mostly just for science. And unfortunately, when you have like, when the majority of your budget is coming from the government, and the majority of the government's money is going towards defense spending, like you have to kind of put yourself in that space at some point, right? You kind of have to say, okay, well, whatever you're willing to give us, we will. And this is, again, it's 30 years ago, 40 years ago, more than that. You know, it's been more than 40 years since when was the last manned moon mission? Let's see. Let's see here. Crewed missions. These are future missions. Historic. 72. Okay. So it was 50 years ago, almost. Yeah, no, it's $721 billion. Like, there's plenty of money there. There's plenty of money there, y'all. So it's not about whether or not we can afford it. And again, when you're talking about money, when you're rounding up to the million, right? You're not worried about all the zeros start after the sixth digit. So you're obviously not worried about that. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter how much money you're spending. Like, what's another $1 billion out of $721 billion? It's like saying if you had $721, and you're like, hey, I need to add another dollar to this. If you're going to buy something for $721, like, all right, I can afford another dollar. I can afford another billion. Numbers get that big. It's crazy to kind of nitpick, but here we are. So I do think it was like NASA thinking incorrectly that the shuttle program would have been an awesome idea, and thinking that maybe it was going to be this launch pad for other things, and it just never turned out that way because it was such a bloated project that didn't really excite people. That it set us back. It was a bad decision, and it set back space exploration as the children who grew up during the period of the shuttle, like, wanted, watching Star Wars and movies like that, were in Star Trek, and where there's aliens and going to different planets and all this other cool stuff. We were the ones, and that's why I think we're kind of getting back to that now. It's because, like, it's our generation now that is signing the checks. It's our generation that is kind of making space travel, like, cool again, and making it work. I will say one thing where, like, for people of this generation, is like they just, the generation who are the ones coming up with budgets and things like that, and startups and making things happen, is like, just make things happen. Like, if you want, like, to do something, it's so easy to get around a no now, in today's society, that I do think that it's exciting. It's an exciting time for us, and for, like, our kids' generations will be an exciting, like, 20 years from now, to see what they can do based on the groundwork that's happening now that the shuttle program is retired and all these new programs are starting. All right, so let's get back to a little bit more about Perseverance here, what we're going to be doing and how we're going to be landing there on Thursday. So if you're just joining, we're kind of going over, we're just kind of having a little space chat today. NASA's Perseverance mission is landing on Mars on Thursday, and I will be broadcasting alongside NASA, the NASA broadcast, to kind of enjoy and mark the occasion, because it's kind of an important one. It's been 10 years since we landed a rover on Mars, so it's going to be interesting to witness that, again, now, with new people and new friends and all that. So today I'm just kind of going through some information about the mission and what they're doing there, what they say they're doing there, and how we're getting there and all that stuff. So I'm just trying to educate myself a little bit on some of those things, and so we can kind of chat more about it on Thursday, and as we're kind of watching what's happening, history unfolding before our very eyes. So Mars 2020 technology, heritage, and innovation. Technologies for entry, descent, and landing. The mission uses technological innovations already demonstrated successfully, especially for entry, descent, and landing, EDL. Like NASA's Curiosity rover, the Mars 2020 spacecraft uses a guided entry, descent, and landing system. The landing system on Mars 2020 mission includes a parachute, descent vehicle, and an approach called a sky crane maneuver for lowering the rover on a tether to the surface during the final seconds before landing. So I would like to see a diagram of this. A parachute. Okay, so it's coming in, comes through the atmosphere, parachute pops out. Descent vehicle. So I'm guessing there is also some sort of like inverse propulsion that slows it down. And an approach called a sky crane maneuver. So then it's going to lower the rover on a tether before it hits the ground. Interesting. Interesting. This type of landing system provides the ability to land a very large, heavy rover on the surface of Mars in a more precise landing area than was possible before Curiosity's landing. Now, Curiosity was the most recent one, 2011. Launched on 2011. Landed at the ALS Plains on 2012. That was the one that was like, that's the most recent one, 10 years ago. The maneuver? No, I will check on that. There's a timeline tab here, and I'm sure they'll talk about that more on Thursday as well. This type of landing system provides the ability to blah, 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 blah. Mars 2020 takes things one step further. It adds a new entry, descent, and landing technologies, such as terrain relative navigation. This sophisticated navigation system allows the rover to detect and avoid hazardous terrain by diverting around it during its descent through the Martian atmosphere. A microphone allows engineers to analyze entry, descent, and landing. That's cool, so we'll be able to hear it. Wonder how they're going to analyze it. Got some hella brakes in that thing. Air brakes, bro. My hair is out of control. I wonder what they're going to be listening for. I'm interested to hear that too. So they're going to be using the microphone to analyze the EDL. It might also capture sounds of the rover at work, which would provide engineers with clues about the rover's health and operations, and would be a treat to hear. So that's the technologies for EDL. Technologies for surface operations. The Perseverance rover design minimizes costs and risks because it is largely based on the engineering design for the previous Curiosity rover. They look very similar. Let's see if we can find pictures of Curiosity. So there's Curiosity. And then and here's Perseverance. So they do look very similar. Oh. So there is Perseverance. And there is Curiosity. So look at that. Very similar. Looks like we got some new treads on the tires. That's right, Matt Damon. Damon! Wikipedia says it's still operational. We gotta update Wikipedia with that. But they look very similar, right? Like the little cameras in the same spot. This is your little helicopter. Or Oogler says helicopter. There's his little buddy. He's got, what are those called? Your familiar, right? Perseverance has a familiar. His little animal following him around, like a RPG. But yeah, it looks very similar. Damon. The Perseverance long-range mobility system allows it to travel to the surface of Mars over 3 to 12 miles. Long-range mobility system allows it to travel on the surface of Mars over 3 to 12 miles. What does that mean? This thing said it goes 200 meters a day driving. Improvements on Perseverance include a new, more capable wheel design, and for the first time, the rover carries a drill for coring samples from Martian rocks and soil. It gathers and stores the cores in tubes on the Martian surface using depot caching, which we talked about earlier. Caching demonstrates a new rover capability of gathering, storing, and preserving samples. This could potentially pave the way for future missions to retrieve the samples and ferry them to Earth for intensive laboratory analysis. What if Matt Damon had a Damon? Would it be Damon's Damon? Yes. Matt Damon. So this is really cool. We talked about this before. Basically, Perseverance is gonna drill samples from Mars, put them in a little tube, and just leave it there. And they don't have a plan for picking these things up yet. That's cool, man. It's all good. We don't have the dad emoji in this chat, but you know, you've earned it. There it is, the hype. Was that emote wall all the way up? It is, okay. Yo, Boris, thanks for the 19 months. Appreciate that, man. Thanks for the Prime sub. This minute. Thank you so much, man. Much appreciated. So they don't have a plan to pick these things up yet. They will eventually, though, and I like that too. Of just like, we're gonna do this. We're gonna just like leave this garbage on the ground right now. I don't know how they're gonna like pick these things up if they get like blown around on the surface. Because it's potentially, right, like these little, I don't know how heavy these tubes are gonna be. I'm sure that if there's like a dust storm or something like that on Mars, it will pick these things up and it could take them miles away. So who knows how they're gonna like track these things? Maybe they have GPS or something like that, or some sort of beacon. Not GPS, but some sort of like tracking device or something like that. But those cores will be there, and the goal, they were saying, within the next 10 years is to like retrieve those and get them back to Earth. So we'll actually have, for the first time ever, like something returning from Mars with a sample from the surface. So something from the surface actually getting back to Earth for analysis, which is kind of cool. Perseverance tests a technology for extracting oxygen from the Martian atmosphere, which is 96% carbon dioxide. This demonstration helps mission planners test ways of using Mars's natural resources to support human explorers and improve designs for life support, transportation, and other important systems for living and working on Mars. Hopefully we don't bring back a pandemic. Yeah, that's old hat now, though, you know? And I think people would be way more into, like, doing, like, a lockdown and social distancing and all the stuff that's, like, super important for keeping a pandemic at bay if it was, like, an alien pandemic. Like, you know, there was that one pushback early on with COVID was, like, it's just like the flu. It's just the flu. I'm not afraid of it. But if it was like alien, like Martian pandemic, people would be like, "Oh shit!" You know. There'd be way more. Be way more of a global response. Wouldn't be able to blame it on like one country either, you know. Unless it was the country that brought it back, which would be us. So we would probably want to blame it on Mars and not, you know, it's not the America virus. So they're talking about improving designs for life support, transportation, and other important systems for living. So it sounds like, yeah, they're getting ready for like the not terraforming, but doing what they can to harvest things that are already on Mars to help us get to and from Mars and stay there for longer. And I know one of those things is that they've talked about in the past, at least, is creating rocket fuel using the atmosphere, like gathering elements found in the atmosphere of Mars over time. So like leaving something there for years and years and kind of like a fuel, a mini fuel creation, like a factory sort of thing, that will harvest the atmosphere of Mars and turn it into things that, if not like rocket fuel, but like elements that can be used for rocket fuel, which would help us get things off the surface. The rover also monitors weather and dust on the Martian atmosphere. Such studies are important for understanding daily and seasonal changes on Mars and will help future human explorers better predict Martian weather, again, which will help us determine like where we need to be and when and all that stuff. Like those sheets that turn air into water for farming. Moisture evaporators, yes. Exactly. Exactly. All right, so there's your mission overview. Again, here's another picture of old Percy doing his drilling. All very cool. Let's look at our timeline for tomorrow or for Thursday. Show starts at 11:15 a.m. Pacific. That's 12 o'clock 15 Mountain Time. So I will. It's going to be a tight squeeze. I may need to dip out for a second, but I will leave the show running. Landing site, Jezreel Crater. At least one Mars year, 687 days is our duration. Let's see here. Entry, descent, and landing. Alright, this website is broken. Okay, here we go. I don't know. Let's see if it has information about what he's made out of. All right. So here's our timeline image. Wish this was a higher res image. Large. Here we go. Not that one. This one. Hello. Let's see where we're gonna put this. Let's see if I can open this in Chrome. Hang with me here, y'all. Let's see, open. Alright, I can just drag it into the browser. There we go. Alright, could have made that easier. Okay, so cruise stage. Here's our timeline for. Now we need to zoom out. We need to actually zoom out a little bit. This one's actually too big, but at least it's nice and clear. And we'll go back to 100%. All right, so cruise stage separation, E minus 10. So that's E equals the atmospheric entry. So this little cruiser device detaches 10 minutes before it enters the atmosphere. Atmospheric entry, 0. Peak heating, so that is plus 80 seconds after it hits the atmosphere. It will hit its max temperature, about 80 seconds after hitting the atmosphere. Peak deceleration, so that'll be what? That'll be the fastest it's going while it's decelerating. 90 seconds, about a minute and a half. Guided entry begins. Parachute deploy, E plus 240 seconds. There's our little parachute. Altitude of 6 to 8 miles. Velocity of 940 miles an hour. Heat shield separation, 20 seconds after that. Altitude of 4 to 7 miles. Velocity of 360 miles an hour. Radar lock, 30 seconds after that. Altitude of... So this whole thing is going to take only a couple minutes. Radar lock, 30 seconds after that. Altitude of 4 to 5 miles. Velocity of 235 miles an hour. Terrain relative navigation solution. I don't know what that means. Oh, that must mean So they were saying it has like this automatic feature where it can kind of like determine the best place for landing. This is new. So E plus 330, so that's about 40 seconds after the radar lock. Altitude of 2.5 miles, velocity of 200 miles an hour. Back shell separation, so we're dropping our payload here. 1.3 miles up at a speed of about 200 miles an hour. That is 350 seconds after entering the atmosphere. Powered descent begins. There's no time on that one, so I'm assuming it happens like immediately or relatively immediately. Rover separation. So the rover pops off at an altitude of 70 feet. Look at this. This is going to be... I wish there was like video of this. Well, can they get Curiosity over there real quick to like film all this? Because this would be so sweet. Altitude of 70 feet, velocity of 1.7 miles an hour. So look how it's going to slow down in... All right, so there's no time on this, I guess. At this point, they're probably like, whenever it gets to where it needs to be, this is when it's going to happen. This is going to be so complicated. I'm getting nervous now. 70 feet, 1.7 miles an hour. Mobility deploy. 68 to 48 feet, 1.7 miles an hour. Touchdown. So 410 seconds from when it enters the atmosphere to touchdown of the rover. And it's got these like this little crane thing. So before this thing hits the ground, it's going to be firing its like repulsors, right, to slow itself down a little bit more while it's lowering the rover down using these arms onto the surface. It's called the sky crane. And then it flies away. Where does it go? Where does this guy... Where do you go? Fly away. Fly, fly. Like, where does it go after it drops the rover off? Like, I'm going to Starbucks. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Does it say here? It's about 7 minutes. Never to be seen. Like, what does it do? This is the one. Okay, so this is what I'm most interested now in this guy. In Flyaway. Waiting in the parking lot? Yeah, I'm just going to go. Call me when you're ready to get picked up. This is the one that's going to deliver the actual goods to the Martians and elites that are living on the surface of Mars. So this is carrying like all the mail, the junk mail, and, you know, all of that stuff to the people who are living on Mars. But nice, just trying to sneak it in here, like fly away, just flies away. Yeah, doesn't really. Don't worry about it. Pay no attention to this this extremely complicated device that's just going to fly away. Does it have any information about that? All right, let's see. Entry, descent, and landing, often referred to as EDL, is the shortest and most intense phase of the Mars 2020 mission. It begins when the spacecraft reaches the top of the Martian atmosphere, traveling nearly 12,500 miles per hour. It ends about 7 minutes later with Perseverance stationary on the Martian surface. To safely go from these speeds down to zero in that short amount of time while hitting a narrow target on the surface requires slamming on the brakes in a very careful, creative, and challenging way. It's cute. Landing on Mars is hard. Only about 40% of the missions ever sent to Mars by any space agency have been successful. Hundreds of things have to go just right during this nail-biting drop. Now I'm super nervous about this. What's more, Perseverance has to handle everything by itself. During the landing, it takes more than 11 minutes to get a radio signal back from Mars, so by the time the mission team hears that the spacecraft has entered the atmosphere, in reality, the rover is already on the ground. So, Perseverance is designed to complete the entire EDL process by itself autonomously. I'm going to check on that one. I do remember that. It like crashed and then it like came back to life because the elites probably like went there and fixed it, right? I shouldn't be saying this. This is bad. 10 minutes before entering the atmosphere. Okay, so this is what's going to happen on Thursday. 10 minutes before entering the atmosphere, the spacecraft sheds its cruise stage, which houses solar panels, radios, and fuel tanks used during its flight to Mars. Only the protective aeroshell with rover and descent stage inside makes the trip to the surface. Before entering the atmosphere, the vehicle fires small thrusters on the back shell to reorient itself and make sure the heat shield is facing forward for what comes next. So, Illuminati. Am I still online, guys? Am I still online? Maybe I am Illuminati. I live a stone's throw from the Denver airport, guys. You should have put all these things together. Yeah, that was the one I think that had like the balloons, right? That it just landed on the surface and kind of rolled and bounced. Amazing that it got all screwed up. Atmospheric entry. As the spacecraft enters the Martian atmosphere, the drag produced drastically slows it down, but these forces also heat it up dramatically. Peak heating occurs about 80 seconds after atmospheric entry, when the temperature at the external surface of the heat shield reaches about 2,370 degrees Fahrenheit. Safe in the aeroshell, however, the rover gets up to only about room temperature. Nice. As it begins to descend through the atmosphere, the spacecraft encounters pockets of air that are more or less dense, which can nudge it off course. To compensate, it fires small thrusters on its back shell that adjust its angle and direction of lift. This guided entry technique helps the spacecraft stay on the path to its downrange target. Amazing. Parachute deployment. The heat shield slows the spacecraft to under 1,000 miles an hour. At that point, it's safe to deploy the supersonic parachute. To nail the timing of this critical event, Perseverance uses a new technology, range trigger, to calculate its distance to the landing target and open the parachute at the ideal time to hit its mark. Amazing. There's the parachute. That's the picture of the parachute. Oh, that's a smaller picture than actually on the post. Dumb. Okay. The parachute, which is 70 feet in diameter, deploys about 240 seconds after entry at an altitude of about 7 miles and a velocity of 940 miles an hour. Zeroing in on landing. 20 seconds after parachute deployment, the heat shield separates and drops away. The rover is exposed to the atmosphere of Mars for the first time, and key cameras and instruments can begin to lock on to fast approaching surface below. Its landing radar bounces signals off the surface to figure out its altitude. Meanwhile, another new EDL technology, terrain relative navigation, kicks in. That one is the one that I was talking about. Using a special camera to quickly identify features on the surface, the rover compares these to an onboard map to determine exactly where it's heading. Mission team members have mapped in advance the safest areas of the landing zone. If Perseverance can tell that it's headed for a more hazardous terrain, it picks the safest spot it can reach and gets ready for the next dramatic step. It's amazing. It's got got a Garmin on board. It's got like the map preloaded, and then it takes pictures and uses radar to figure out where it is and tries to orient itself so that it'll land as close to the safe zones, which its little team members have identified ahead of time. Pretty cool. In the thin Martian atmosphere, the parachute is only able to slow the vehicle to about 200 miles per hour. To get to its safe touchdown speed, Perseverance must cut itself free of the parachute and ride the rest of the way down using rockets. Directly above the rover, inside the back shell, is the rocket-powered descent stage. Think of it as kind of a jetpack with 8 engines pointed at the ground. Once it's about 6,900 feet above the surface, the rover separates from the back shell and fires up the descent stage engines. Cool. That's a cool picture. The descent stage quickly diverts to one side or the other to avoid being impacted by the parachute, and back shell coming back down behind it. Okay, so the first thing it does after it detaches is goes like to the side. The direction of its divert maneuver is determined by the safe target selected by the computer that runs terrain relative navigation. Okay, so it's like going to drop itself like adjacent to the safe zone. This is, again, I'm paraphrasing, I think, but like it's going to try to identify where the safe zone is, drop itself next to it, and then when it detaches from the parachute and the back shell, first thing it's going to do is shoot itself over, so it's directly over the safe zone, and the parachute and the back shell land off to the side. Sky crane maneuver. As the descent stage levels out and slows to its final descent speed of about 1.7 miles per hour, it initiates the sky crane maneuver. With about 12 seconds before touchdown and at about 66 feet above the surface, the descent stage lowers the rover on a set of cables about 21 feet long. Meanwhile, the rover unstows its mobility station, locking its legs and wheels into landing position. So awesome. I like seriously wish I could see this like happen. As soon as the rover senses that its wheels have touched on the ground, it quickly cuts the cables connecting it to the descent stage. This frees the descent stage to fly off to make its own uncontrolled landing on the surface, a safe distance away from Perseverance. So there's your answer. It flies away and makes an uncontrolled landing, so it crashes, which I would also like to see. Known by the team as the 7 Minutes of Terror, which is going to be the name of my stream on Thursday, the entry, descent, and landing for Perseverance will be broadcast live as the rover arrives on Mars on February 18th, 2021. So fun. 7 Minutes of Terror. Beautiful. That's pretty cool stuff.
We
All
are
right,
in
so the
Death
range
Valley
trigger.
testing terrain relative navigation, the new
Who's talking?
technology for Mars 2020. The
Oh, it's this one.
terrain in Death Valley is very much like Mars. It has a lot of sand
Where is
dunes,
this audio
steep
coming
slopes.
from?
It's quite similar to the
Shh.
landing site that Mars 20.
Anyway. Do we have, I think there was a, was it up here that it had the real-time simulation? Okay. Yeah, that's not very good. I want to just see an animation. All right, so range trigger. This is a new technology. The key to the new precision landing technique is choosing the right moment to pull the trigger that releases the spacecraft's parachute. Range trigger is the name of the technique that Mars 2020 uses to time the parachute's deployment. Earlier missions deployed their parachutes as early as possible after the spacecraft reached a desired velocity. Instead of deploying as early as possible, Mars 2020's range trigger deploys the parachute based on the spacecraft's position relative to the desired landing target. That means the parachute could be deployed early or later, depending on how close it is to its desired target. If the spacecraft were going to overshoot the landing target, the parachute would be deployed earlier. If it were going to fall short of the target, the parachute would be deployed later after the spacecraft flew a little closer to its target. Okay, so it's like more intelligent deployment of the parachute. A Kerbal stream in honor of Perseverance. I would have to like brush up on my Kerbal. It's been a while. Did the new one come out yet? Is Kerbal 2 out yet? Not yet. Next year. Shaving time off the commute. The range trigger strategy could deliver the Mars 2020 Perseverance rover a few miles closer to the exact spot in the landing area that scientists most want to study. It could shave off as much as a year from the rover's driving commute to its prime work site. Amazing. So that's why they did this. It makes the landing closer to their like target spot. It shrinks that circle of where the rover can start its little journey. Another potential advantage of testing the range trigger is that it would reduce the risk of any future Mars sample return mission, because it would help that mission land closer to samples cached on the surface. That's cool. So that all is kind of playing together. And then, okay, so we're already here. Terrain relative navigation is critical for next-gen Mars exploration. Some of the most interesting places to explore lie in challenging terrain, with hazards like steep slopes and large rocks. Until now, many of these potential landing sites have been off-limits. The risks of landing in challenging terrain were much too great. For past Mars missions, 99% of the potential landing areas had to be free of hazardous slopes and rocks to help ensure a safe landing. Using terrain relative navigation, the Mars 2020 mission team is able to consider more and more interesting landing sites with far less risk. Cool. So here's a little animation of how it works. It's coming down. It takes a photo and it says, and it compares it real quick to the map from orbit that we've got. And it says, oh, okay, we've got some mountains here. This is probably not going to be a great place to land because it's all rocky and uneven. So let's make a quick adjustment and divert over here where it's nice and flat. We don't want to land on Mount Evans if you're in Colorado. We don't want to land on Mount Evans. We want to land in Broomfield. Where it's a little bit flatter and, you know, and safer. That's cool. Okay, here's the video. Let's watch another video. I've muted the website.
20, the terrain in Death Valley. We are in Death Valley testing terrain relative navigation, the new technology for Mars 2020. The terrain in Death Valley is very much like Mars. It has a lot of sand dunes and steep slopes. It's quite similar to the landing site that Mars 2020 will be going to. We're taking a copy of the system that will be on the spacecraft, and we're testing it in the way that it would be used during the flight mission.
So cool.
Terrain relative navigation gives the vehicle the ability to figure out where it is. This is kind of along the same lines of what the Apollo astronauts did with people in the loop back in the day. Those guys were looking out the window.
You're talking about mission to
looking
Mars?
for different craters and other features on the moon that they knew of from the maps we had of the moon. So that way they could figure out where they are and figure out where they needed to land to be safe. So for the first time here on Mars, we're automating that.
What terrain relative navigation gives you is the ability to avoid hazards that you already know about. So large hazards, hills, craters, things that you've seen before. With the camera, we take images as we're descending, and we match pieces of the image to orbital imagery that we have stored on board. And if we make many of these matches, we're able to figure out where we are relative to the map.
If we didn't have terrain relative navigation, the probability of landing safely at Jezreel Crater is about 80 to 85%. But with Mars 2020, we can actually bring that probability of success of landing safely at Jezreel Crater all the way up to 99% safe every single time.
We don't have an astronaut that we can put on board Mars 2020, but we can put this system, this terrain relative navigation system, so that the spacecraft can figure it out on its own.
I could see it being used on lunar missions, science missions, as well as human missions. Future Mars missions, of course, Mars sample return, Europa lander, landing on a comet, pretty much everywhere you want to land. You're going to want to have terrain relative navigation.
That's pretty cool. So another thing, I guess, like, again, we're seeing how it's all tying together with what the important things that we're going to be seeing on Thursday, how they're going to be tying together into future missions. An old boss of mine loved that movie, but I didn't find out until I completely shit on it at a lunch. I've seen that movie more than once, I'll admit it, you know, but that it kind of feeds that kind of, it's super bad though, I agree. And especially like the way it ends is just like, oh man. That was a Brian De Palma movie, wasn't it? I believe it was. There was also that other one, Red Planet, that came out like the same year with Val Kilmer, which I never saw. All right, so that's all interesting. So we've got 7 minutes of terror on Thursday coming up for Perseverance. Let's see if we have a timeline for surface operations. Okay, so we know it's going to take about a little less than 2 years as the primary mission, and then after that, obviously, it's all gravy from that point. So it's going to be, while it's there, it's going to be finding rocks that formed in or were altered by environments that could have supported microbial life on Mars's ancient past. That's objective A. These are in order of its objectives. So finding rocks capable of preserving chemical traces of ancient life, biosignatures, if any existed. Drill core samples from about 30 promising rock and soil targets and caches them on the Martian surface. Okay, so it's not just going to be like randomly drilling stuff. It's got 30 candidates for Wow. I'm going to watch them both. I'm going to watch them both and report back. We must have a winner here. I'm writing it down. I will do this for science. For science! And the final objective is to test the ability and produce oxygen from the carbon dioxide Martian atmosphere in support of future human missions. How does Perseverance explore during surface operations? As the Perseverance rover explores Mars, scientists identify promising rock targets. They especially look for rocks that formed in and were altered by water. Water is key to life as we know it. Such rocks are even more interesting to have if they have organic molecules, carbon-based chemical building blocks of life. All right, I'm not going to go through this whole thing. So here, the sample caches will remain on the Martian surface awaiting potential pickup by the future missions. So there's no plans to pick these up yet, but it will eventually. Images taken by orbiters can identify locations of the samples with a precision of about 3 feet. Amazing. Images taken by the rover's own cameras will increase that precision to less than half of an inch. Crazy. What's going to happen if they move, though? So here we go. Depot caching strategy. Landing site, region of interest. So it's going to go to each one of these regions, take a whole bunch of samples, and then drop them. Oh, it's going to drop all the samples in the same spot. Okay. So it's going to land here, go, take a whole bunch of samples, drop them here. This is the pickup. This is the depot for picking up the samples. And then it's going to go out to here and back, and then out to here and back. Cool. So these first 2 spots with the solid lines are the primary missions. So it's just here, take some samples, drive over here, take some more samples, and leave them all here. And then the extended mission has got 2 more regions of interest. Very cool. All right, we got any more videos to watch? We'll watch a couple more videos here, and then then we'll call it for the day. What do we got here? Let's watch another video about this 7 minutes of terror here.
Nothing can be taken for granted when you get to Mars. There's a lot of things we just don't know.
Space always has a way of throwing us curveballs and surprising us.
I mean, until we get the data that says we're on the ground safely, I'm going to be worried that we're not going to make it.
Entry, descent, and landing is often referred to as the 7 minutes of terror because it takes about 7 minutes to get from the
video
top
I
of
wanna
the
see.
atmosphere of Mars to the ground safely.
The spacecraft has to do all of this by itself.
There are many things that have to go right to get Perseverance onto the ground safely.
There's a lot counting on this. This is the first leg of our sample return relay race. There's a lot of work on the line.
Starting about 10 minutes before atmospheric entry, we get rid of really the spacecraft part of the rover that's been supporting us.
We come screaming in to the Martian atmosphere at 12 to 13,000 miles per hour.
And the heat shield is what dissipates all that initial energy through friction.
The vehicle will continue actually flying itself through the atmosphere. It's sort of like a transforming vehicle that went from a spacecraft and now it's kind of like an aircraft actively guiding itself.
When we're going slow enough, we deploy a parachute.
The biggest supersonic parachute we've ever sent to another planet. It's critical for slowing down the vehicle.
Perseverance's entry, descent, and landing borrows heavily from that of Curiosity.
But fundamentally, Perseverance is a different rover.
They're like
She's
brothers.
Bigger, she has different instruments.
We've added a lot of smarts on the inside to make it more capable so that it can deal with the landing site that we've given it.
The science team identified Jezreel Crater as basically an ancient lake bed and one of the most promising places to look for evidence of ancient microbial life and to collect samples for future return to Earth. The problem is it's a much more hazardous place to land.
You look at Jezreel, all you see is danger. How do we go to a site that we never thought was safe enough to go to before? So the heat shield, which has protected us all the way through entry, is no longer necessary. We need to get that off so that we can actually see the ground. And we can see the ground in a couple different ways.
Perseverance will be the first mission to use terrain relative navigation. So while it's descending on the parachute, it will actually be taking images of the surface of Mars and determining where to go based on what it sees. This is finally like landing with your eyes open. Having this new technology really allows Perseverance to land in much more challenging terrain than Curiosity or any previous Mars mission could. Amongst the rocks and the craters and the cliffs, these things are hazardous to the rover, but these are the things that are interesting to the scientists.
Once Perseverance has figured out where she is, we jettison the back shell and parachute and light up our rockets.
They're calling it a she.
Those rockets help us steer to a safe landing spot that's nearby.
That descent stage takes us all the way down to about 20 meters off the ground.
That's when we start the sky crane maneuver.
So cool.
And once the rover has hit the ground, the descent stage will cut loose from the rover and fly away to a safe distance. Surviving that 7 minutes is really just the beginning for Perseverance. Its job, right, being the first leg of sample return.
Oh,
to go
so
look for
lonely
those signs
and
of past
kinda
life on
cute.
Mars. All that can't start until we get Perseverance safely to the ground. And then that's when the real mission begins.
That's so awesome. I'm so excited for this. It's gonna be nerve-wracking and really fun. All right, so here's our animation of I'm gonna download this sucker too. Make myself some GIFs. Oops. That audio. That's music. Actually, we'll save this one. We'll watch this one. We'll watch this one on Thursday. But let's watch the. We'll watch the rocket launch. We'll watch Perseverance launching from. This is from July 30th. Then we'll call it a day for today. This was.
The Perseverance rover headed to Mars, ready to ride a column of
over the
fire
summer
and smoke on its way to the red planet.
And liftoff. As the countdown to Mars continues, the perseverance of humanity launching the next generation of robotic explorers to the red planet.
And Atlas TU has gone to closed loop control, standing by for SRB burnout shortly. And we have successful separation of Mars 2020 with the Perseverance rover.
We now have an acquisition of signals, and the years of blood, sweat, and tears from every person who worked on this mission is now realized.
It's gonna be exciting, guys. It's gonna be really exciting when they get that confirmation on Thursday. So difficult. It's such a difficult and I don't know. Like, I'm just very hopeful. It makes me like stuff like this just makes me feel very hopeful for humanity that we could actually do stuff like this. So maybe we'll go through some of this stuff on Thursday as well. But yeah, so we are gonna if you guys want to tune in on Thursday at let's see, their coverage starts at 12 o'clock Mountain Time, or 12:15 Mountain Time. So I'll probably start streaming like right before then, like around 12 o'clock Mountain Time. I don't know how long the broadcast is going to go. I don't know exactly at what time they plan to actually land. Let's see. but I assume it's going to be like within like an hour or two of them going live. So yeah, so we were going to be we'll be watching alongside NASA and celebrating in our own way. So I'll probably have some coffee. Maybe I'll get a bottle of champagne. I don't know. And we'll do a little toast to Perseverance on Thursday. So I don't normally stream on Thursday, so it'll be like a special day and time, special engagement. 12 o'clock Mountain Time. That's 2 p.m. Eastern Time. On Thursday, we'll get going on that. So tomorrow night we'll be back again playing some Apex tomorrow night at 9 p.m. But that's gonna do it for the stream today. So appreciate you guys hanging out. Boris, thank you for the 19 months, the Prime sub. Much appreciated, my friend. Thank you guys for hanging out and chatting about space. This is really fun. I like doing this, and I want to do it more often, so I will. The book we talked about was The Case for Mars, by the way, and I will post links for that and the conversation about Artemis, if I can find it, from TwitchCon last year with Skylius. So thanks for hanging out. Thanks for chatting. We will see you guys tomorrow night. If not, we will see you on Thursday at 12 p.m. Mountain Time.